This was one of the more bizarre weekends in Washington Wizards history, which, trust me, is saying something. Somehow, this organization was able to squeeze in trading two of its players, having that trade fall apart, having those players find out about all of it in the post-game locker room in front of their other teammates and media, losing to Brooklyn, retrading those same two players again, and acquiring a vet they themselves had dealt away 4 years ago. And then they beat the Lakers, holding LeBron James to 13 points, while John Wall dropped 40. Did you see any of this game? The Lakers were on the second night of a road back-to-back and sure looked like it. LeBron missed 11 of his 16 shots, despite that the Wizards didn't have much to throw at him. Otto Porter Jr. was out. Markieff Morris missed the second half with a neck strain, and Kelly Oubre and Austin Rivers weren't available because we'll get to that. But John Wall was tremendous, not just scoring in bunches, but also dishing like he was already at Christmas dinner. I mean, that was pretty, right? And he even played defense. And yeah, this should have been whistled as a foul or maybe a flagrant, but even it had been, I guarantee you that Scotty Brooks would have been thrilled because it meant his players were actually engaged and trying, something he has repeatedly cited as major issue this year. By the way, Wall hit this shot over Tyson Chandler. Whew, this closed the first half. It was just very clearly his night, and even enough to give Wizards fans some hope that their team might actually climb into a playoff spot. Well, that kind of game, and the major shakeup that the Wizards got over the weekend. Yes, people, you know what time it is. Another episode of one of our favorite shows within a show, Wall and Order DC. Yeah.
In the National Basketball Association, the people of Washington are represented by two separate yet equally important groups. The guys who are finger-pointing inside the locker room and the guys who are playing for the next contract. These are their stories.
Dun, dun, dun. It turns out that America's favorite basketball crime series is recasting. And thanks to a trade call today with the league office, it is now official. Trevor Ariza is back on the Wizards roster as part of a deal that also sends Oubre and Rivers to Phoenix. I have no idea if Ariza is going to be able to significantly reset Washington's season. I mean, yeah, he's a strong defensive presence whose previous stint with the teams mean he has strong older brother type relationships with a number of Washington's players. But also, well, fixing the Wizards is a lot to ask. Just look at the way this trade went down. It was originally supposed to be a 3-team deal that also involved Memphis, with Washington GM Ernie Grunfeld as the go-between. But the whole thing ridiculously, hilariously broke down when, according to our Adrian Wojnarowski, quote, the Grizzlies and Suns insisted each had been double-crossed, unquote, because Memphis believed the deal included Marshawn Brooks, who looks like this, and the Suns thought it included Dillon Brooks, who looks like that. NBA Twitter, of course, had a field day with all of this, culminating in this from Dillon Brooks, which is amazing. And I mean, I gotta hand it to the Wizards here because the Suns have spent the past few seasons as the NBA's most prominent hold my beer franchise, and yet somehow while negotiating with them, Washington outdid them. By Saturday, things were mercifully cleaned up, and now Phoenix can go forward and fully embrace another season playing for a high draft pick. And the Wizards can embrace, well, clearly they think they're still in it, which is why they acquired Ariza instead of trying to deal either Bradley Beal or Wall. Now, are they actually? Honestly, I wouldn't dare to make a prediction about anything involving the Wizards. This weekend was a great example of why. So, Mark, do you think that this shakeup, this is what the Wizards needed for this season, or is it just another storyline for Wall and Order DC?
Well, in 2014, they had a guy named Paul Pierce.
They did.
Who you know very well, and I thought he was a great influence on that team. I thought he got the best out of Wall, out of Beal, and was a veteran presence that they needed. Now, they're a little older. They're not the young Wizards anymore, young stars anymore, but I think Ariza could have that same kind of influence on them, as well as giving them a veteran guy that could tell them to shut up and play, hit a three, get back. I just think he could bring a lot of the intangibles that Paul Pierce brought that was successful for him.
Yeah, I mean, I think if you look at it this way, the case for the trade makes sense. Oubre and Rivers aren't in their long-term plans.
Sure.
So you trade guys who were on, essentially last year for another guy who's on last year. One who, by the way, had his best offensive season as an NBA pro in Washington, playing with the backcourt of Wall and Beal. And look, if you can bring the chemistry issues there from a DEFCON 1 to a DEFCON 3 and stabilize it, look, and in the East, you're never more than a couple good weeks away from a 6.
Yeah.
So, I mean, look, if Porter comes back healthy, if I'm a 2 or a 3, I don't want to face Wall, Beal, Ariza, Porter, and whomever. I mean, that's...
Dwight.
And Potentially.
Why are you looking at me like that? Why are you looking at me?
Be nice.
Dwight's healthy. He's still a presence.
You behave, please.
He's still a presence.
So, look, I don't think it's the magic bullet. I think they're delusional if you think they're going to, be contenders. But I do think it stabilizes an unstable situation.
I mean, that's what I keep saying about the Timberwolves, who have 2 max extension players. The Wizards have 2 All-Stars. They are a luxury tax team again, as you just mentioned. They have good role players. This is a team that should not just be in the playoffs. It's not some big surprise rebound if they make the playoffs. It's getting back to the mean if they make the playoffs. The question is, can they contend? And in the East, we thought anybody would have the shot to contend, those top 5 or 6 teams, and they kind of separated themselves down. But maybe this will be what works.
This has been the most disappointing franchise in the NBA probably the last couple of years, right? I know. Aren't they close to your heart a little bit?
Look, I grew up in D.C., and you can't add the last couple years as the end of that sentence. You have to really just put the period earlier in that sentence. But sure, go ahead.
Yeah. So kudos to Ariza, because he went and got Phoenix to give him some money.
Man, absolutely.
And then got traded to not a super team, but a team that's pretty good.
Well, that's going to hopefully be in the play. They feel will be in the playoffs. And by the way, also shout out to James Jones, who very wisely sort of let it. I don't know if he let it leak. All of our reporters did a good job finding it out.
Certain teams would say so. Yes.
Certain teams would say that he let it leak, that he was interested in trading Ariza, and maybe even to the Lakers, which would get other teams sort of to bump up. There was reporting this weekend that Robert Sarver didn't want to deal with the Lakers at all.
Yeah.
Who knows, sort of.
And he got a younger Ariza and Oubre. I think Kelly Oubre's a good player.
Yeah, we'll have to see what happens this summer, though, because he's going to want some money and be entitled to
Look, he could even move this season.
Yeah, absolutely.